So now, it is my great honor to call up our keynote speaker for tonight, Mrs. Sarah Blau. Mrs. Sarah Blau is an educator, a speaker, and a leader in our community. A deep thinker, she loves to delve into Hasidus for meaning and insight. She is the author of many books, including Close to You, Daily Spiritual Motivation Inspired by the Tanya. We are honored to have her inspiration open our hearts and minds and connecting with our truths. Welcome, Sarah. There was once a town, which you might have been familiar with, by the name of 𝐏𝐫. And in this town of 𝐏𝐫, all the way at the edge of town, they had an old, rickety bridge. And it really wasn't safe, but sometimes you had to cross that bridge. But what often happened is that people would go from one side of the bridge to the other, and below, some parts of it had water, some parts of it was land, but people would fall off this rickety bridge, and they would get hurt. And they had to transport them to a hospital. The problem was the hospital was all the way on the other side of town. And so what happened is that by the time so many of the hurt people reached the hospital, unfortunately, they died. And there were many fatalities due to this rickety bridge. So the elders of 𝐏𝐫 convened and they said, we've got a problem. Too many people are dying. We have a bridge, it's not safe, it's rickety, it's broken, people are falling, people are dying, what could we do? And they brainstormed for days. Finally, after about a week, one wise elder of 𝐏𝐫 says, I have such a brilliant idea. Why don't we knock down the hospital, which is at the other end of town, and rebuild it right near the bridge, so that when people cross over the bridge and fall, they'll be right near the hospital and they won't die on their way to the hospital. And everyone was like, wow, this is genius. And that's what they did. They knocked down the old hospital. They built a brand new state-of-the-art hospital right near the bridge. And here's the kicker. There actually, statistically, were less fatalities near the bridge. They accomplished their goal. But not one wise elder of 𝐏𝐫 thought to say, hey, maybe we should fix that bridge. They dealt with something external rather than getting to the root. Today's Chai Elul, the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, of the Alter Rebbe. What was going on historically at that time period? Before the Baal Shem Tov was born, the Jewish people were in a state of despair, trauma. People were killed, pogroms. And not only that, but the Jewish people had also just went through a period of thinking that the moshiach actually arrived, only to have all their hopes dashed by Shabsai's feet. And the Jews were at an all-time low. And Hashem said to the Jewish people, you know what the answer to all of this is? You're emotionally, spiritually, mentally at an all-time low. I'm going to wake you up. And on Chai Elul, Taf Tzadik Daled, the Baal Shem Tov was born. Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, Hashem is like, Yisrael, Yidden, I'm waking you up. I'm giving you your life back. And then just a few years later, the Alter Rebbe was born on Chai Elul. We are injecting life and energy back into your life. Vitality, passion, wake up. And that's what Hasidus did. And very specifically, Chai is not just Chay's life. This day adds life to the entire month of Elul. Like Chaya mentioned, Chai Elul. And the Rebbe explains, what is Elul? Elul is Ani l'daidi v'daidi li. And there are many, many Maimarim and Sichais which explain all different beautiful explanations about the king in the field. One thing I learned this year that I never knew before is that actually a very integral part of the mashal is, unlike all the pictures of the king in the field with the crown and the robes, the point of the mashal of Melech Basada is actually a king without a crown and a king without a robe and a king who you would almost miss if you're walking down the street, but Elul is a time to have a relationship with him. And the Rebbe says, how do we do that? How do we inject life in our relationship? How do we come back to the root? How do we come back to our inner core and our essence? And the Rebbe says, even Talmidei Chachamim work on the Avodah of Tefillah. When we connect to Hashem, that is how we inject vitality into our relationship with him, into our lives. What are we davening for? So on one level, we are here together to storm the heavens to free the hostages. And at the same time, as Yidden, we are all interconnected with each other. And the Alter Rebbe teaches in Tanya that we have an inner hostage inside of us. Sometimes we are hijacked internally. And when we daven, and when we connect, and when we do the avodah of freeing our inner hostage, that has a ripple effect on the whole world. What does that mean? The Alter Rebbe explains in Perek Mem Zayin, I believe, that we have a neshama that, while up in heaven, just enjoy being one with Hashem, doing all the holy things that neshamas like to do. And nobody asked this little neshama. She gets thrown down into this world, and what does she get to deal with? Issues, challenges, struggles, pain, suffering. Neshama's not so happy. Not only that, she gets placed into a body that the neshama wakes up in the morning and says, I want to be b'simcha. And the body says, no, I'm going to make you anxious. I'm going to make you depressed. Or the neshama wakes up and says, I want to daven to Hashem. And the body says, no, I'm going to make you lazy. The neshama gets hijacked by a body. It doesn't want to be that kind of person who doesn't say the truth, who hurts people. The neshama's like, I was totally hijacked. Someone else took hold of this operating system, and just like a hijacker takes over the plane, someone took over my neshama, because that's not me. I'm acting in a way that I don't want to be acting. I'm yelling when I want to be calm. I'm stressing when I want to have faith. That's my neshama hijacked. And the Alter Rebbe says, what do we have in our ability to free this neshama? This poor soul that we are supposed to have compassion for, who wants nothing more than to just live a spiritually inspired life. How do we free her from her constraints of the body, which might be just showing up in a way that might seem like a contradiction? And the Alter Rebbe says, there are two tefillahs that are right next to each other. The tefillah of Shema, followed by talking about Yetzias Mitzrayim. How do we go out of our Mitzrayim? How do we escape our Egypts? How do we escape our limitations? How do we escape our hijacking of our godly soul? The Alter Rebbe says by meditating and saying the Shema. When a Yid thinks and says, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. When a Yid contemplates what that means, Hashem is my God. This is my connection to Hashem. This is real for me. When a Yid davens, that gives the neshama the ability to overcome the inner resistance, to get my body to be a friend, to want the same thing as what my godly soul wants. So how do I free myself and make my neshama the pilot of my plane? By connecting during davening. That's what will free me from all my challenges, obsessions, addictions to whatever it is that is holding my soul hostage. What I need to have is a very, 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 very strong connection to Hashem. A strong connection to Hashem that is so powerful that I could even overcome my own inner demons. And so when we do ask, when we do free this inner neshama from ourselves, our inner yechida, that has a ripple effect of freedom in the whole world. But what I want to do today is on this topic of tefillah and freeing our neshama. I want to go on a little journey and look back throughout history, because much of what we know, in fact, much of the halachas that we have about davening are actually learned from women. And so if we take a look back at the tefillah that Jewish women had, we see the power of Yiddish women and the power, like Chaya said, of what we're accomplishing tonight. The power of an inclusive bracha that will include all of our heart's desires. So first, a little story. Reb Shmuel Munkes was once traveling on his way to the Alter Rebbe for Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. And for Shabbos, he stopped at a small town, and Matzah Shabbos, his hosts woke him up to go to Slichos. Gets up and he goes, "Where are we going?" And his hosts are like, "We're going to say Slichos." And he's like, "What do we do at Slichos?" And his hosts tell him, "We're going to get up and ask Hashem for a good year, that our crops should succeed and we should have money." And Shmuel Munkes says to his host, he says, "Since when do grown people get up in the middle of the night to cry about a little bit of food?" Now he's trying to shake them up and open their eyes that there's more to life than food. But the Rebbe actually explains something very, very powerful. That, yes, it seems like we are just coming to Hashem to ask him for our little hopes and desires, for some food, for shalom bayis, for children, for whatever our physical desires are. But actually, that's not a contradiction to asking for the deeper connection. It's not a contradiction to accessing our neshama. It's not a contradiction to getting to the root of what we really, really want. And this we learned from Chana. Right now here, everybody who's in this room or on Zoom, think about something that you really, really want. Might be something mundane, like new chairs, because your chairs are broken, or something much more substantial, a real bracha. Think about something you want. And then ask yourself, is this a selfish thing to want? Is it selfish to want to have a shidduch? Is it selfish to want to be healthy? Is it selfish to want to have children? Are these things selfish? The Rebbe has a beautiful sikh on Rosh Hashana where he asks a similar question. We're coming to Shul on Rosh Hashana. It's the holiest day of the year. How dare we come on the holiest day of the year and have any requests for Hashem? It's the day that Hashem is going to decide our year, and we all, the Arkadas opens and we stand and we daven. I'll never forget, by the way, I'm seeing Mrs. Rosenfeld here. I remember standing in Rosh Hashana and asking for Hashem for them to accept a manuscript of mine, which was accepted, by the way. But I just remembered that desire was so strong. And I'm like, oh, it was such a real desire. I wanted to be a published children's book author. And the Rebbe explains, let's go back to the story of Chana. Chana, who the Gemara lists so many halachas that we learn. What happened? She was in the Mishkan davening for a child. And Eli came over to her and said, "What are you doing here?" He accused her of being drunk. Now the Rebbe analyzes the story, right? Did Eli really think Chana was drunk? And the Rebbe explains that Eli didn't think she was drunk on alcohol. Eli thought she was acting inappropriate. She was drunk on her own ego and her own self. What are you doing in the Mishkan asking for your own needs? And what did she say? I'm not asking for something physical. I'm not asking for food in the middle of the night. Ve'eshbeiches nafshi. This is my soul's desire. If I want to have a child that will be dedicated to Hashem, I got to have a child. If I want to serve Hashem, I got to be healthy to serve Hashem. And so we're expanding. Our request for physicality is much deeper. And the Rebbe says, Rosh Hashana is a day where we access our essence. We access our neshama. It's not a matter of a mistaken request that we're building a hospital instead of fixing the bridge. We're actually getting to the root, and we're going very, very deep. We're saying my soul, going back to the children's book, it's part of my mission in this world to inspire Jewish children. Within our physical request, we can expand it. My kids told me the story. My son said it to me as a joke, but it's very deep. My son told me that somebody was once given the opportunity to ask for any bracha that would come true. And he's laughing. He tells me, you know what he asked for? He asked for that he should live to see his great-grandchildren eating on golden plates. He's like, Ma, you get it? That means he lived a long life. That means he had kids and great-grandkids, and it means that he's rich, so he was asking for everything in one. But that's really what we learned from Chana. We're not only asking to release, I love what you said, Chaya, our returnees to be released. We're not only asking to free our neshama. When we ask for the geula, when we're asking for the ultimate, we're asking to sit by Mashiach with the returnees at our table. We're asking for the most expansive tefillah, which will include in it all our heart's desires. And here's something else that's unbelievable. The Rebbe says, do you know why specifically we learn halachas from Chana? There were other women who davened before her for children. Chana broke the mold. The way Hashem established the world, is that the only thing we actually could daven for is physical things. Spiritual things are not in the realm of tefillah. How did Chana have the guts to daven for a child that was going to serve Hashem? And the Rebbe says she actually was the first to do that. And that's why she's the prototype for tefillah. Because remember, she said that 𝐿 nafshi, she had so much kavana, so much intention, so much bittul to Hashem, that Hashem reflected that back to her and gave her her heart's desires. So what lesson are we taking from Chana? The Rebbe says at the end of that sikha, the fact that we use Chana as a prototype means all of us have the ability to do the same. We could ask for something gashmius, we could ask for something ruchnius, and we have an ability to change reality. She wasn't supposed to have a child, and definitely not control the outcome of what kind of child. And yet a Jewish mother's tefillah, a Jewish woman's tefillah, can have an impact even on something that Hashem already said that's not in the realm of tefillah. So that's what we could learn from Chana. From Chana, we learn about the intention and how we could shatter. There's no glass ceilings. Anything you want, you can daven for. Because when you put that kavanah into it, Chana paved the way for us to be able to make a difference. There was once a guy who decided to open a club right across from a Hasidic congregation. Needless to say, they were not too happy about that. And so for 3 weeks straight, they tried to demonstrate, convince him, make a whole fuss, and he just went on with his plans to build his club. Finally, the shul decided to get together, and they said, we're having a night of tefillah. They stood outside, and they davened to Hashem that this club shouldn't open. The next night, lightning strikes the club, and the entire thing gets destroyed. So the club owner takes the Hasidic congregation to court, and he sues them because you prayed, my club burned down. Wow. And the Hasidic people hired a lawyer, and the lawyer said it has nothing to do, it's random. So what? So they prayed. And the next night, he was hit by lightning. So the judge said, this is really, really interesting. We have an atheist secular Jew who believes in the power of prayer, and an entire congregation that doesn't. The power of prayer, the power of tefillah is real. And who do we learn this from? Esther. Esther knew that the entire Jewish people, their lives were at stake. And you would think what she would do if she's trying to convince her husband, the king, to free the Jewish people, is to diplomatically do what's considered normal. Get dressed up beautifully, come to the king, wow him, and then beg him to save her people. But that's not what she does. She fasts for 3 days and davens to Hashem. And she comes to him pale and looking much less attractive, because Esther taught us this lesson of davening. Obviously, you have to do diplomatically whatever you have to do. But what's really going to accomplish the goal? What's really going to win the battle? What's really going to free our fellow Yidden? What's really going to free our neshama, our yechida? What's really going to bring the geula? It's going to be this tefillah. That's the real power. And it's very interesting because the Jewish people, we have lots of nicknames. One of our nicknames where the Jewish people are called or compared to is Rachel, and the other one is Esther. The Alter Rebbe actually explains that Rachel represents a sheep, and sheep represent bittul, surrender, like a sheep that's led to slaughter. And Rachel represents a time period when the Yidden are just batal to Hashem. Godliness is so revealed that Jews do like whatever Hashem wants. Esther represents exact opposite, a time period when Hashem's light is hidden and Jews are not so surrendered. And yet, which is greater? The Alter Rebbe explains that it's true an era of Rachel, Hashem is revealed. But you know how much of Hashem is revealed? A little ray. And it's true that during a time of galus and challenges, Hashem's light is hidden, like during the time of the decree. But you know what you have access to in a time of a decree? Hashem's essence. So now we have a catch-22. When Hashem's light is revealed, it's just a ray. When Hashem's light is hidden, it's Hashem's essence. But how can you access it if it's hidden? So the Alter Rebbe says, it's not non-existent, it's hidden. The way to access Hashem's essence is through tefillah. This is what Esther is teaching us. How do you access this unlimited light of Hashem? How do you connect your neshama with its source? Through davening. Because by davening, that's how we access this ultimate and infinite light. So we learned from Hannah about the kavanah and about the power to make a difference. We learned from Esther about how tefillah is really what's powerful, not the diplomacy. I want to share a few more examples of women and davening. There's a story of Rabbi Meir, the husband of Bruria. And he one time had a situation with some of his neighbors. His neighbors were very toxic people, and he didn't really know how to deal with them. And so he started davening to Hashem that his neighbors should die. And his wife, Bruria, heard that and said to her dear husband, she says, Rabbi Meir, are you taking this from the pasuk in Tehillim, where David HaMelech says about how Yitamu Chata'im, do you want the sinners to die? And she says, listen to this. Yitamu Chata'im v'lo chaitem. Daven that their sins should cease, not their life. Daven to Hashem that they should be non-toxic, not that they should die. And he said to her, you are so wise. That is what he did. He davened to Hashem that his neighbors should stop bothering him, and they indeed turned a leaf. And so when we're navigating different interpersonal relationships, when we're encountering difficult scenarios, something that we can give us this gift of seeing through people's exterior is separating the person from their sin. It's like if, God forbid, a Jewish person sells non-kosher meat. His meat isn't kosher, but he's not a piece of meat. He's a Jew who really messed up. And so when we're navigating difficult situations, we have an ability to separate the person from what they did and daven for the people around us to be freed from their inner hijacker. And the power of tefillah to make a difference. And we can actually have compassion for people that are hijacked, because we also have experiences that were hijacked. And what we're getting together tonight to do as Jewish women is to access this power of tefillah, to access this geula of our neshama. Because what happens as I free my neshama, and you free your neshama, and you free your neshama, we draw down the ultimate, the great grandchildren who are eating with gold. There's a sikha where the Rebbe asks very famously why it is that the week of Parshas B'Shalach, where we read as Yashir, the Haftarah is Shiras Devorah, which is a woman. And the Rebbe shares a story that the Alter Rebbe says. There was once a very, very, very simple boy who couldn't really learn, and from a young age, he was apprenticed to be a tinsmith. And he made a nice living for him and his wife, but it always bothered him that he could never learn. And one time, him and his wife, they hosted somebody who was very learned, but had sacrificed a lot. He wasn't so healthy. He traveled. He had no money. And the tinsmith was actually inspired. And he went to the forest and he davened to Hashem and he said, Hashem, I want to learn. And out of nowhere, somebody appeared to him and said to him, if you really want to learn, I'll teach you, but you have to give away all your money. He says, okay, I'm going to go discuss it with my wife. Goes to his wife. He asks her, what do you say to me giving away all our money so that I could learn Torah? And she says, sure. She asks for one thing. Please invite this teacher for a meal. And so he went back to the forest, found this future teacher. He told him his wife agreed. And this teacher and the wife and the teacher and the tinsmith come into the home, and the tinsmith comes into the home, and he sees that the table is set like a Yomtov. There's candles, all their china's out, cutlery, silver. And this teacher, this mysterious teacher says, what kind of a Yomtov is it today? And the tinsmith said, to tell you the truth, I don't know. Ask my wife. And so this teacher says, Rebbitzin, not Rebbitzin, but lady of the home, what's the Yomtov today? And she said two things that I'm celebrating. Number one, the mitzvah of Achnasas Archem. And number two, if Hashem had to take away all our money, at least he did it in a bakavadika way, in a way where it wasn't through sickness, it wasn't through losing it in business. It's in a way that my husband's going to become a Torah scholar. That's a Yomtov. And she gave all her money, and he traveled for a few years. When he returned to his Talmud Chacham, she survived with a few little things that she grew in her backyard. And when he returned, not only was he Talmud Chacham, but Hashem made it that they got all their money and they grew to be wealthy once again. Who do you think that teacher, that mysterious teacher was? It was obviously none other than the Baal Shem Tov. When the Alter Rebbe repeated this story to answer why we use Shiras Devorah, the song of a woman, the Alter Rebbe said, all Yeshuas come about through the power of women. Why do we use Shiras Devorah? What power does the tefillah of a Jewish woman have? Everything. And the Rebbe goes on to explain what was unique and special about the shira that the Jewish women had, not just Shiras Devorah. When the Yidden came out of Mitzrayim, the men also sang. But Miriam did something extra. She did something special. She did something unique. she took out those tambourines, which hopefully you're going to have some singing and dancing tonight. And the Rebbe says, you cannot underestimate. Now, Miriam, by the way, was not in denial of the trials and tribulations that they had in Mitzrayim. In fact, the Rebbe said, Miriam and the Jewish mothers felt the pain more. Miriam and the Jewish mothers felt the pain more. Because after Miriam was born, Pare made much worse decrees. Who felt the pain of giving birth to a child and then the child was used as a brick by Pare? Who felt the pain of a child being used to bathe in the blood? The Jewish women felt the pain more. And the Rebbe said, "L'fum tsara agra." In proportion to our pain is the reward. In proportion to the pain is our joy upon being free. Miriam wasn't in denial. It's not like, la, la, let's dance even though there's a war in Israel. It's, we have so much pain, let's channel it into the joy of Geula. She was more effective. She was more powerful. We have to read the Haftarah of a woman because we want to highlight the joy. It's not only about davening with kavana. It's not only davening and knowing you can make a difference for ruchnius. It's not only davening and meaning it. It's about asking for the most inclusive tefillah that we possibly could ask for. Our great-grandchildren sitting, eating the levyasan with the hostages in Eretz Yisrael, asking for a bracha that contains everything. Asking for a bracha that right now we're going to go to Geula to Eretz Yisrael, emotionally healthy, a bracha, a tefillah that will include everything. Because we know that Elul is Rosh Teves for all the different avaidas in Elul. And there's an avaida of Torah, and there's an avaida of tefillah, and there's an avaida of tzedakah, and there's an avaida of tshuva, and there's also an avaida of Geula. And the Rebbe says this corresponds each to the different levels of our neshama. There's nefesh, there's ruach, there's neshama, there's chaya and yechida. What are we here to do in Chai Elul? We're here to go straight for the big ask. We're not asking for $2,000. We're asking for millions. We're not staying on the level of nefesh, ruach, neshama. We're going for yechida. We're going for geula. We're going not just to build a new hospital and keep a dysfunctional bridge. We're going to retreat from the challenge and return Yidden from no matter where they are in the world. Free Eretz Yisrael. Release us. Add a chayas to the sfila and joy of Geula, turning to the Eibusher and believing that we can make a difference. And knowing that just like our mothers before us, we're able to change reality by the words that came out of their mouth. We have the ability to dance, to sing, to daven, and to break through all barriers and ask Hashem, we are here for the ultimate ask. Grant us the ultimate tefillah, which we're going to be saying soon, a tefillah that will impact and encompass every single desire that we want for spacious homes, for the Beis HaMikdash, for 770, for everything that each one of us are davening for, anything you might have written for the Ayel, that the Eibusher should grant it in the schus of Jewish women physically right now, tonight, in our day, that we finish Chai Elul, literally frantically booking tickets or eagles to Eretz Yisrael. Yomtov.